Hey guys, and today we're going to talk about a psychological phenomena called the weapon focus effect. Now, I want to say before I start, as I always do, that I know not all of you are interested in psychology videos, so I've got more tech videos coming soon, some Drupal tutorials, and some other exciting stuff. I also want to say that I'm recording this video on my last day of 6-week holiday away from school, but when you'll be seeing this video, I'll be back at school. So my intention today is to create a stockpile of videos that I can upload while I'm busy, so you guys can get a constant flow of content. Anyway, we're a minute into the video, so let's start talking about the concept. Basically, the weapon focus effect is the idea that because of the stress of seeing a weapon at a crime scene when you witness a crime, you might focus more on the weapon. So your testimony and your witness account as to other aspects of the crime that you witnessed might be less reliable because you spent all that time focusing on the weapon, because that's what stressed you. Your identification might be less reliable. So we're gonna talk about an empirical study into this. Now, this study is done by Elizabeth Loftus, and you might remember Elizabeth Loftus from course studies at AS, or if you just do any psychology research in general. Elizabeth Loftus is a guru of eyewitness testimony, and she did this study, and I think it's fair to say that she's quite into the idea of trying to discredit eyewitnesses, because she argues that there's so many other variables other than what you've seen that could have affected your testimony that eyewitnesses can't be relied upon. And the weapon focus effect is what she gives us one of the reasons. Now, you're going to have to excuse me while I look down, because I've got a textbook in front of me that I'm going to glance down at for the specifics. But in this study, and this is Loftus and colleagues, 1987. What she aimed to do was provide focus for the weapon focus, provide support for the weapon focus effect. Now, after reading a study by Pickle, 1998, which isn't actually on the spec, what he did was something quite different, and he argues that what she labelled as the weapon focus effect isn't actually the weapon focus effect, because people aren't responding to it because they're intimidated. The reason why people are responding to it is because it's an unusual object, and that might be particularly applicable in this laboratory setting we're going to talk about in a minute in terms of ecological validity, because you could argue that in a laboratory setting you're not gonna feel threatened, so you're gonna maybe focus on a weapon differently than you would in a normal situation. So the aim of the study was to provide support for the weapon focus effect, and it was a laboratory experiment, and done on 36 psychology students from the University of Washington, aged 18 to 31. So we've got the usual sample generalizability problems. They're all students, so students might not represent the majority of witnesses to crimes. They might be more adept to taking in information than most of the general population, so they might not be representative in that way. So between 18 and 36 students, and half of them were paid. I believe it was $3.50 to participate, and they were going for an advertisement, and the other half were doing it as extra credit in psychology class. So if you're looking at evaluation points, which is something we have to do for the OCR A-level forensic psychology spec, you could say that because they're being paid, or because they're psychology students who are getting extra credit for participating, they might try to figure out what the experimenter wants and jive with that. We refer to that as demand characteristics. So what happened? Well, basically they were shown a quick film strip, and remember this was in 1987, so they were showing it on 35mm film, and it was a scene of people in a queue at a taco time fast food restaurant, and these participants were split into two groups, an experimental group and a control group. So independent measures design, participant variables as usual, so maybe lack of reliability there, but they were split into two groups, and there were these there were these 18 slides, and one of them varied between the groups. So there were these slides, and one of them in the experimental group included the participant pointing a gun at the cashier, the second person in the queue pointing a gun at the cashier, and in the control group it was just they just pointed a check. So after viewing that scene, they were asked a 20-item questionnaire about their recognition of the event, or what they recognised, and just going into findings, no significant results were found on that questionnaire. But then they also had eye fixation software looking while they were looking at the screen, and they found that people in the weapon focus group, people who were in the experimental group, so they saw the weapon, spent an average of 3.72 seconds looking at the weapon, whereas the people in the control group spent an average of 2.44 seconds looking at the check. So the idea is you spend more time looking at the weapon, and that's the point of the weapon focus debate. It's because you spend more time looking at the weapon, you're less likely to be able to reliably identify people, because we know from studies like Penrod and Cutler 1995 that witness confidence is a very important factor in jury determinations. So we've got an average of 3.72 seconds for the witness, for the weapon focus group, and 2.44 seconds for the control group. In terms of so they were shown a lineup of 12 faces and asked to identify which person B was, trying to get as realistic of a witness identification as possible, and 38.9% of people in the people in the control group, so the people that didn't set the weapon, 38.9% of them made the correct identification, whereas it was only 11.1% in the weapon focus group. So even still, 38.9% isn't very high for a correct identification rate. So I'm just going to check if there were any other results I missed out on. No, that was pretty much it. So in terms of results, you've just got to remember 3.72 seconds for the witness identification group. For the weapon focus group, 2.44 seconds for the control group, and then in terms of suspect identification, 38.9% correct for the control group and 11.1% correct for the weapon focus group. So fewer people in the weapon focus group can identify the correct suspect than the people in the non-weapon focus group. So what can we conclude from that? Well, as expected, this does provide support for the weapon focus effect. Now, just before we get on to evaluation points, I want to talk about a study by Pickle 1995, and I might do a follow-up video to this if I can get more information on the Pickle study. But basically, the premise of the Pickle study was he was arguing for the fact that it wasn't the weapon that made people spend more time looking at that and be less likely to identify the suspect. It was rather the fact that a weapon focus was an unusual object, so it was captivating our attention. So what he did was he basically conducted exactly the same experiment on different participants, obviously, but he had more conditions than just gun and check. He had gun and check conditions, but for a high unusualness, low threat object, he had a raw chicken, and he also had a knife, and he found similar rates. And again, I can't get specifics on this because I don't know them. I'll come out with a future video on that. But he found similar rates of identification and confidence with the raw chicken as with the weapon. So the fact that it's a weapon might not be the only variable that we come across here, but weapon focus is important in psychology because even on the spec we come across it again in when we talk about the John Duffy case, Cantar 1994 case of profiling and successfully detaining a serial rapist. A lot of his victims got details wrong, and he used a knife, and they sort of attributed that to the possible weapon focus effect. But when we're talking about evaluation, we've clearly got extraneous variables there, because it might be reductionist, it might not just be the weapon focus that's making people do that. It might just be the fact that it was unusual. We've also got ecological validity issues in the fact that watching video isn't an intimidating situation like it would be if you saw someone had a gun pointed at them and you then had to identify them. There's also less of a time-lapse effect, so you don't maybe get the primacy and recency effects that you would in normal witness identification, and so there's definitely a lot of ecological validity issues. Sample validity, obviously they're all psychology students, they're all between the ages of 18 and 31, so they might not be representative of the overall population. And just issues like that. So that's weapon focus. Loftus et al. Loftus and colleagues, 1987. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Stay tuned for more tech videos in the future. Hope you've enjoyed, and definitely visit my website just down below, tomdesrogers.com, for a whole bunch more content. And yeah, thanks guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.